Alright, believe it or not, we are getting close to the end of the regulations here. Knowledge number 20 is pre-flight. What do you need to know about pre-flight? Or inspections and things you do before you take off with the drone. Prior to the flight, the pilot in command, the PIC, must do the following. Number one, you have to assess the operating environment. Is it safe to fly? Is the weather appropriate? Is the wind over 10, 15 mile an hour? I better not be flying. Is there enough visibility? I have to be able to see 3 miles. If I can't see 3 miles in any direction, I can't fly. I need to know the local airspace. Are there any flight restrictions? Is there a NOTAM like we talked about last time? Is there an airport nearby that I need to stay away from? I need to know the location of other people, property on the ground. Is there anything I need to stay away from or avoid? Am I trying to fly too close to a train, or what's going on? And I need to know ground hazards. Is there anything on the ground that may potentially impact my flight? All those things I need to consider before I even look at my drone. Once I've said, yep, that's all good, I need to make sure that anybody directly participating in the operation knows what the heck we're doing. So, little Jimmy's going to be my observer. I need to make sure he knows where we're flying, why we're flying, and what we're trying to accomplish so that he's able to be helpful in the operation. And so I need to make sure that they're informed about contingency procedures, their role, what they're responsible for, any hazards or things they need to be watching for, emergencies, etc. A good way of saying this is we need to do a pre-flight meeting and just simply say, okay, everybody, this is what we're doing. And these aren't 15 5-hour meetings or anything like that. This can be a 30-second or a minute or 2 minutes just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Even if it wasn't required by the law, it's still a good thing to do. Next, I need to ensure that all control linkages between the ground control station, my controller, and the drone are working properly. Again, no duh. If I can't control a drone properly, why would I want to fly it? Next, I need to make sure that if it's powered, how's it going to fly if it's not powered? But anyway, if it's powered, I need to ensure there's enough power to make sure I can get to where I'm going, trying to accomplish the job I'm trying to accomplish, and get back and land properly. These drone batteries, especially on like a Phantom 3, for example, the maximum amount of flight time is only about 25 minutes. So if I'm starting with a half full battery, I may only have 12 or 15 minutes worth of flight time left. Is that enough time for me to take off, get up to 400 feet or whatever height I'm going to, fly 200 yards away, take a picture, and fly back? So we need to assess the battery power to say, is there enough power? Or do I need to swap out batteries? Or do I need to readjust my job so that I do have enough power, do enough battery to be able to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish? Especially true over water. Nothing worse than sitting on a boat and you're flying the drone and you suddenly realize it's not got enough power to get back to the boat before it's going to crash. The sinking feeling in your stomach as you realize that drone's going in the water. When a drone gets wet, it's junk. Never had that happen, but talk to some folks who have, and they say that's the worst feeling ever because no matter what you do, it's the last time you're going to be flying that drone. Lastly, prior to flight, you must ensure that any object attached to or carried by the unmanned aircraft is secure and doesn't adversely affect the flight. So if I'm adding a camera that's not normally there, or I've got something I'm carrying that's not normally on the machine, I need to make sure that it's stable, that it's balanced. These machines are flying based on balance and some physics, and so if my physics is off, the machine's not going to fly very well. More detail towards the end of the semester when we get into the actual details of what should a pre-flight inspection occur. Number 21, operation limitations. Did you know that the drone is not allowed to fly faster than 100 miles per hour? Not sure about you, but I'm not so certain I want to try to maneuver a drone flying at 100 miles an hour, but 100 miles an hour is the maximum speed limit a drone's allowed to fly. Maximum altitude is 400 feet above ground level unless you're flying within 400 feet of a structure that's taller than that. So if I have a tower, a radio tower, let's just say, so Woodbury County emergency responders have radio towers around for their communications. I've got a 1,000-foot tower, and I want to inspect the light bulb at the top of the tower to see if it's functional, to see if I need to change it. I could climb the 1,000-foot tower, but that's going to take a lot of time, and there's the risk I could slip and fall and hurt myself. 2 minutes, I might be able to buzz the drone up to the top, check it out, and fly back down. Problem is, it's over 400 feet. Well, actually, it's not really a problem because the law says that if you're within 400 feet of that tower, you can fly 400 feet above that tower. So technically, if I have a 1,000-foot tower, I can fly my drone to 1,400 feet into the air. Why do they allow that? Well, FAA basically says, look, if you got a tower that's 1,000 foot tall, airplane better not be flying at 500 feet because he's likely going to hit the tower. And so, as long as I'm within a certain radius of the structure, I can go higher than 400 feet. But otherwise, if I'm flying across an open field, 400 feet is my maximum altitude. Visibility, as we mentioned earlier, visibility has to be at least 3 statute miles in all directions. So if it's a foggy morning, you can get some really cool photos of the fog, but if I can't see 3 miles in any direction, how can I avoid those airplanes that may be flying in the area? We're flying what's called VFR, or Visual Flight Recognition. They're flying IFR, which is instrument rating. They're using their instruments and they're not necessarily looking out the window. And so I have to be able to see them to be able to avoid them. Flight visibility has to be 3 miles. Now, if there are low-hanging clouds, I have to be at least 500 feet below the cloud and 500 feet below the cloud and 2,000 feet horizontally from that cloud. Can't say that I've seen a lot of clouds at 400 feet, but if there does happen to be a very low fog or something, a mist or something that's hanging really low, I've got to stay at least 500 feet below or 2,000 feet horizontally away from that area so that I potentially don't hit somebody else when you see them. What are they going to emphasize in the test? Look at the 2 underlined pieces here. 500 feet below the clouds, 2,000 feet horizontally. That's a buried piece of information they're going to try and trick you with. Make sure you know those numbers. Also know the 400-foot height. Know the exception, 400 feet, within 400 feet of a structure, no more than 400 feet above the top of that structure, even if it's higher than 400 feet. And also know that 100 mile per hour is the maximum ground speed. They'll try and trick you a little bit there by putting it in knots, because most people don't think in terms of knots. 87 knots is the same as 100 miles per hour. All right, down to our last little bit of information. Let's talk about the requirements of the remote pilot certificate with a drone. What are the requirements you have to have? Well, you can't have an OWI. You can't be someone who's known to be, lack of better words, known to be a drunk. So you've got to be someone who can fly without drugs or alcohol in your system. You have to agree when you supply your license application to the government that whenever they request, you will provide a breathalyzer test or a urine test for drug enforcement. Whether you have it or not, whether you think it's anything, you agree you will, without any hesitation, submit to that. Refusal to do so is the same as a positive. And there's no, oh, well, I changed my... No. Local law enforcement can ask for you to submit to a test. If you fail, counts as an OWI, whether you actually had anything or not upon refusal. So, step number 1. Second thing to think about is the eligibility requirements. So, in addition to agreeing to the drugs and all that and agreeing to follow the rules, we also must make an application on the FAA website. So once you've finished this course, we will give you a little sheet of paper saying go to this website, log in, and you actually apply online. It's completely online. It's completely paperless. There's no paper application for this. And so the application has to include either evidence you've passed the class, or excuse me, not the class, evidence you've passed the test that you'll take at the end of this class, or that you're already a pilot certified to fly an airplane. And then there's just an online class that you click through on the FAA website, and that counts to get your drone endorsement. For most of you here, I'm assuming most of you don't have a pilot's license already. You will need to pass the initial aeronautical exam. After that, it's just tell them your height, your weight, hair color, literally. They don't quite go as far as asking for your third son's middle name, but they ask a lot of detailed information. They want to verify that you are a U.S. citizen and that you have no felony convictions or any of those things that may exempt you from this process. In addition, the aeronautical knowledge recency basically says that you are going to acknowledge you're taking the test. many exams, or excuse me, many licenses, like say your teacher license, you have renewal credits you have to have every so often to keep the license new. With the drone license, there's no renewal course you can take. Every 2 years, you must retake the exam. That is the only method FAA allows for any of its pilots, whether they're airplane pilots or helicopter pilots or now drone pilots, to renew their license. Basically, what the FAA is saying is we want to make sure that you are up to snuff on all the rules. So we're going to force you to retake that licensure exam because when things change, or we got to make sure you're good to go. So just keep that in mind. You know, you're likely going to pass the exam in June or July. You must retest no later than June or July 2 years from now. So mark it on your calendars. You may or may not get a note in the mail from the FAA saying, hey, your license is expiring. They haven't really said whether they're going to do that or not. But for me personally, I just put a note on my Google Calendar for 2 years from now to shoot me a reminder about 2 months before it's due so I can start studying. But just set up a system that works for you that'll allow you to be ready to retake this test in 2 years